She didn't expect me to show up. That much was clear by the way her hand jerked mid-air when she saw me standing by the entrance, like a glitch in her perfect little evening. I watched her eyes widen, then narrow, then slide back into corporate charm like nothing happened. But something had, and she knew it, and I knew it. The ballroom was loud, over-decorated, drenched in white wine and fake applause. Her department had just closed some record-breaking deal, and Chandler, the man I now can't say by name without tasting acid, was giving a toast that made half the room laugh and the other half plot their LinkedIn exits. I wasn't supposed to be there. She told me it was a networking-heavy event. Her exact words. I'd almost believed her. But then I saw the Uber charges. The 2 separate orders from Sephora. The hotel check-in under her maiden name. So I bought a suit I couldn't afford, showed up uninvited, and waited for her to notice me. She did. But she didn't come over right away. No. First, she laughed a little too hard at a joke Chandler whispered in her ear. Then she touched his lapel like it was lint she was brushing off, but I know that touch. I invented that touch. I stood by the bar and watched her flirt with someone else like I was a ghost at my own funeral. And I let it happen, because pain needs proof. And I needed more. Then came the slow dance. Of course they had a slow dance. Chandler spun her around like this was his wedding, and she let him, one hand on his chest, the other behind his neck. She used to say she hated slow songs. But there she was, swaying like she belonged to him. Like I was nothing more than a typo in her life story. I walked onto the floor before the final note. People turned. Cameras paused. Some junior associate tried to stop me with a polite, "Sir," but I kept walking. When I reached her, she looked up at me like I was interrupting a dream. She opened her mouth to speak. And then she reached for my hand. Right there, in front of everyone. And I leaned in. Close enough that only she could hear me. My voice was steady. My jaw wasn't. Not after what you did. And I turned and walked away. You could have heard the silence crack in half. But I wasn't done yet. I didn't head for the exit like she probably hoped I would. No. I circled the perimeter of the ballroom like a shark that had stopped pretending it was just a fish. People didn't know whether to greet me or avoid me. I think some assumed I was a disgruntled ex-employee or someone's lost cousin who drank too much. And maybe I was both. But I didn't care about them. I only watched her. Mallory, that's her name, not that it matters anymore, stood frozen in the middle of the dance floor for a second longer than she should have. Just long enough for people to wonder what I'd whispered. Just long enough to look guilty. And then, she laughed. Loud. Performed. Arms around Chandler like I hadn't just dropped a brick into her manufactured fantasy. But I saw the panic behind her lashes. The kind of fear that doesn't come from being caught cheating. It comes from realizing the person you betrayed isn't going to scream. They're going to stay silent and make you wonder what they know and when they'll use it. I walked toward the catering table and picked up a drink I didn't even want. Cranberry something. Bitter. Fitting. My phone buzzed twice in my pocket. Then again. And again. I didn't need to look. I already knew the sender. Probably some text like, "Can we talk?" Or "Elwood, please." Or, "You're being dramatic." Dramatic. That's what she'd called me when I first asked if anything was going on with Chandler. That was 3 weeks ago. Back when I still believed in coincidence. Back when she still lied in lowercase. "You're being dramatic, Elle," she said, pulling on her coat without looking at me. "He's just a colleague. You're inventing things in your head again." But I hadn't invented the second toothbrush in her work purse. I hadn't imagined the email draft I'd seen when she accidentally mirrored her phone to the bedroom TV, the one titled "Tonight," with his name in the subject line and no body text yet. I hadn't hallucinated the receipt from the boutique hotel downtown where we never stayed together because she said it was too tacky. And now here we were. I looked back at the dance floor. She was whispering something in Chandler's ear, but he wasn't laughing anymore. He was watching me. They both were. She tried to smile again, but it faltered, just slightly. I raised my glass toward them in the most passive-aggressive toast I could muster, then down the entire thing in one burn. That's when I made my way to the stage. Not to speak. I'm not that bold. I'm not a movie character. I'm just a man who's had enough and hasn't figured out what to do with the mess. I stood near the stage while the next speaker, someone from finance, began thanking all the incredible minds who helped the company thrive this quarter. Mallory had been one of those minds. There she was, now clutching a glass of something gold, her fingers trembling just a little. I knew she didn't fear me exposing her. No, that wasn't her style. What terrified her was the unknown. I had the power now, and I wasn't going to use it loudly. Not yet. Let her panic. Let Chandler sweat. Let their secret live in limbo, not exposed, but not safe either. Because I wasn't planning to ruin her night. I was planning to ruin the one after it. Back when everything was still fine, or at least when I was still pretending it was, I used to think silence was the worst kind of punishment. That not being talked to, not being touched, not being seen, was the most excruciating version of neglect. But that night, standing at the back of the ballroom while she nervously whispered to her lover and tried to smile through glass teeth, I realized something worse. The worst kind of punishment is uncertainty. The not knowing. The wondering what you know. And I had mastered it now. I was her silence, but laced with threat. After the speech ended, and everyone clapped as if they weren't just waiting for the open bar to resume, I made my move. I didn't go to her. I didn't confront her. I walked straight past her table without looking. I felt her body tense as I passed. A flicker of scent, that expensive perfume she used to save for our anniversaries, and I kept walking. To the coat check. I asked for my jacket, but not to leave. Inside the breast pocket was my backup phone. Not a burner. I'm not that cliche, just my old iPhone with a cracked screen and no SIM card. I'd kept it powered off for months until yesterday, when I used it to do one thing. I'd airdropped her something. A message. No text. No name. Just a single video file. You see, while Mallory was busy deleting texts, hiding lipstick smudges, and covering her tracks like a pro, she'd forgotten one thing. Her laptop. The one I gifted her for Christmas 3 years ago. The one still connected to our home Wi-Fi. The one that automatically synced her calendar, her cloud storage, and her camera roll. And 2 nights ago, at 3:42 a.m., while she thought I was asleep, she uploaded something she shouldn't have. I don't know if it was by accident. Maybe she was drunk. Maybe she was careless. But she forgot that her iCloud still talked to mine. It was short. 15 seconds. Blurry. Her voice moaning something that wasn't my name. A sliver of Chandler's tattooed arm in the corner of the frame. Hotel room lighting. No faces. But enough. More than enough. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I just waited. And now, with my cracked screen phone in hand, I walked back into the ballroom. I saw her glance at me, then at her purse, probably to check if her phone had buzzed again. Then she reached for it, pulled it out slowly. I watched her screen light up. The file name I gave it wasn't subtle. Are you proud of this? She froze, like her body forgot how to breathe. I didn't even need to see her face to know the color drained from it. Chandler leaned in, asked something. She didn't respond. She was just staring at the screen, holding it in both hands like it might explode. I wondered if she thought of running, if she thought of smashing it. But she didn't. She slowly raised her head, and our eyes met, properly, for the first time that night. She didn't cry. Mallory never cried in public. Too composed for that. But I saw the collapse behind her gaze. The cold realization that this wasn't going to be buried in excuses or gaslighting or some late-night apology over wine. I wasn't playing by her rules anymore. She started to move toward me. I turned and walked. Not away, but just enough to keep her wondering. Because I hadn't said a word. Not yet. But I would. I left the ballroom through the side corridor that smelled faintly of lemon wax and cheap champagne. My pace was slow on purpose. I wanted her to follow, but not catch up. I wanted her to wonder if I'd show the video to someone, or email it to HR, or upload it to a burner Reddit. I wouldn't do that, of course. That would be too loud, too final. This was never about revenge. It was about control. And after so many months of feeling invisible, erased, replaced, I had it back now. I took the elevator up to the 9th floor, to a room that shouldn't exist in this story. Room 917. The room I'd booked under her name 2 days earlier. I used her corporate email to reserve it, the login she always left open on her home office monitor. A stupid little mistake for someone so meticulous. I'd only needed 5 minutes alone at her desk while she was in the shower to make the confirmation, send the receipt to the trash, and delete the email thread. She had no idea it existed. Until tonight. I left the door propped open with a folded conference brochure, just enough to look like a cleaning staff error. Inside, I'd laid everything out. 1 empty wine glass, 1 lipstick-stained napkin, and a tie. Chandler's. I stole it from the back of her car the night she came home from yoga, with mascara half melted and no mat in sight. She never noticed it was missing. Now it lay across the bed like a crime scene clue no one would believe. Next to it, A printed photo. Grainy. Black and white. A freeze frame from the video. Not explicit. Not grotesque. But damning enough. I placed the second phone on the nightstand, screen glowing with a simple message. Show this to anyone, and your promotion's gone. Your job's gone. His marriage is gone. You're done. I didn't sign it. I didn't have to. This wasn't about sending the message. This was about her finding it. I left the room and took the long way back to the gala. No one saw me. At least no one who mattered. By the time I returned, Mallory was nowhere near Chandler. She was at the far end of the room, phone still clutched in her hand like a detonator. Her eyes darted around like she was scanning every corner for something she couldn't name. She didn't know about the room yet, but she would, because a text was waiting for her. Scheduled. Timed perfectly to arrive as she reached for another glass of wine. 9:17. Just 3 numbers. But they would do more damage than any screaming match ever could. From across the room, I watched her open it. Her eyes widened. Not like earlier, this time they stayed wide. Frozen. Her lips parted like she wanted to call out for someone, but didn't know who. She turned slowly, scanning the room. Looking for me. I let her see me this time. I held her gaze for one long, heavy second. Then I tilted my head. Not a nod, not a threat. Just a little tilt. And then I walked into the crowd and vanished. She wouldn't follow me now. She'd go to the room. She'd open that door. And what she found inside, well, that's when the real fun would begin. I didn't go far. I knew her too well to risk missing what came next. Mallory was always allergic to unknowns. She couldn't leave a text unopened, a voicemail unchecked, a question unanswered. So I knew the moment she saw 917 on her phone, she wouldn't wait. She wouldn't ask. She would go. And that's exactly what she did. I trailed her from 2 floors below, listening for the muted ding of the elevator and counting the seconds before I slipped into the next one. The cameras wouldn't catch anything. I'd studied the security schedule in advance. They looped the same 20 minutes of footage when the event staff switched shifts. And even if they did record me, no one would ask questions unless something louder happened. I reached the 9th floor just in time to hear the soft click of the hotel card sliding into the lock. Room 917. She stepped inside. The door closed behind her. Silence. I waited across the hall in the service alcove, tucked between 2 cleaning carts. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, focused, like something inside me had shut off the part that cared about being the bigger person. I gave her 5 minutes. Not long enough to process. Just long enough to feel. Confusion. Shame. Panic. Recognition. At minute 6, I stepped out of the shadows. She opened the door before I could knock. Her mascara was smudged, but not from tears, from rubbing. Like she was trying to erase whatever version of herself had walked into that room. Her phone was clutched in one hand, the tie in the other. And she didn't say anything. Not at first. She just looked at me like I was someone else entirely. Elwood, she said finally, her voice barely there. What is this? I smiled, the kind of smile people mistake for forgiveness right before they realize it's not. I thought you hated slow reveals, I said, brushing past her into the room. She didn't stop me. She didn't have the strength. The bed was still unmade from when I staged it. The wine glass untouched. The photo still sitting like a dagger between the sheets. She hadn't moved anything. Not even the note on the nightstand. Who have you shown it to? She asked. There it was. Not is it real? Not how could you? Just a calculated question. An exit strategy forming behind her eyes. She wasn't sad. She was scared. Not of what she did, but of what it might cost her. No one, I said. Not yet. And I meant it. I hadn't shown anyone the video. I hadn't sent it to Chandler's wife. I hadn't uploaded it anywhere. I hadn't printed a single copy beyond what was already in that room. But I wanted her to believe I might. Why? She asked, voice rising slightly. Why are you doing this? What do you want? I turned to face her fully. The lights above the bed flickered slightly. An old fixture, probably shorting out. But it added to the drama. What do I want? I repeated. I want you to know what it feels like to wait for something awful. I want you to feel the clock ticking above your head every time your phone buzzes. I want you to spend every second of this weekend wondering whether the floor beneath your life is still there. She blinked. Then finally, the first tear. It slid down her cheek like it didn't belong to her. Elwood, please, she whispered. You don't understand. It wasn't what you think. I laughed. Not loud, just sharp enough to hurt. No. I stepped closer. Because from where I'm standing, It looks exactly like what I think. And I've thought about it a lot. Every night. Every morning. Every time you came home with the scent of someone else's cologne that you called vanilla candles. She was shaking now, but not from remorse. From losing control. I'll fix it, she said suddenly, desperate now. We can fix it. You don't have to do this. You don't have to ruin everything. And there it was again. The fear of exposure, not the shame of betrayal. She wasn't pleading for me. She was pleading for her career, her image, the version of herself she'd sold to everyone else. I stepped back. Ruin everything? I said softly. Mallory, I'm not ruining anything. I'm just setting the table. You already lit the fire. Then I walked to the door, paused, and glanced back over my shoulder. You might want to clean up in here. I hear someone from HR always walks the halls after midnight. Habit. I didn't wait for her response. I closed the door behind me, not with a slam, but with the soft, final sound of something ending long after it should have. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have. 9 floors, but it might as well have been 90. My reflection in the polished steel doors looked calm, maybe even satisfied, but it didn't feel like victory. Just silence. A quiet emptiness where all the fury used to live. She was still up there, probably pacing in that room, thinking through every possible outcome. I knew Mallory. She wouldn't cry. She'd calculate. She'd go through every scenario like a PR crisis manager, who might have seen something, who she needed to call, what she needed to delete, how to spin this into something survivable. She was good at survival. But this wasn't something you could PR your way out of. When I stepped back into the ballroom, nothing had changed, at least, not on the surface. The music was louder now. People were drunker. Chandler was nowhere to be seen. Someone said he had an urgent call. I almost smiled at that. I wondered if she'd messaged him already. Maybe even sent him a screenshot of the photo. Maybe she told him to run. I drifted to the bar and ordered a soda water. My mouth was dry, my throat tight, like I'd swallowed something sharp and hadn't realized it yet. The bartender gave me a side glance, probably wondering why I looked like I'd just come back from burying a body. Maybe I had, in a way. As I stood there, a woman from Mallory's department approached me. I think her name was Dana. Bright eyes, overdressed for a corporate party, the kind who smiled too much but meant well. She leaned against the bar next to me. Your wife okay? She asked lightly. She looked a little off when she left. I tilted my head slightly, gave the kind of vague smile you use when you want someone to stop talking but don't want to make a scene. She's just tired, I said. It's been a long quarter. Dana nodded. Well, she crushed it this year. Honestly, they all think she's getting Chandler's job when he steps down. Everyone's talking about it. That part almost made me laugh. The idea that this whole affair wasn't even about lust or love or drama, just leverage. A shortcut to the top. And maybe I was naive to think it ever meant more to her than that. I left Dana at the bar and walked to the hallway outside the ballroom. I needed air, but I didn't want to leave. Not yet. There was one last piece I needed to move. One final thing I'd held back, just in case she still thought she had the upper hand. Because you see, there was something Mallory didn't know. The video? It wasn't the only one. The 15-second clip was just a sample, just enough to get her attention. But in the cloud account she thought was disabled, the one she stopped using a year ago and never removed from her sync settings, there was more. Dozens of files. Screenshots. Audio recordings. Calendar entries. Messages. One in particular stuck with me. A voice memo, late night. Slurred words. Her voice. He doesn't even know. It's kind of hilarious. I could tell him I'm at therapy and he'd believe me. God, he's so soft. That was the one I hadn't listened to twice. Once was enough. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder. I hadn't shared it with anyone. I still didn't plan to, but I needed her to know that I could. So I uploaded it to a private server. One she'd recognize. Our old shared Dropbox, the one we used when we first moved in together. I left it under a new folder titled For Review. She'd see the notification, and she'd check, because of course she would. Then I logged out. Let her find it. Let her hear herself through someone else's speakers. This wasn't about exposing her. It was about revealing her, to herself. I stepped outside and let the cold air hit me. For the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I didn't feel invisible. I felt still, but not finished. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt. I'd gone past guilt 3 exits ago. But because after the adrenaline faded, all that was left was this strange, hollow ache. like I'd burned the house down and only just realized I was still inside it. Mallory didn't come home. I half expected her to, maybe with some final half-scripted plea about rebuilding trust or taking space. But there was nothing. No knock at the door. No text. Not even a missed call. Just silence. It was tempting to think she'd packed a bag and left for good. That would have been the easy way out, the clean break. But Mallory didn't run. She reorganized. And whatever was happening behind the scenes now, I knew it wasn't surrender. She was spinning, recalculating, flipping through mental index cards trying to figure out how to retake control. I spent most of the morning in the kitchen, staring at nothing. The coffee went cold. The toast burned. The notifications kept coming in, Dropbox logins, file downloads, an attempt to change the password. I smiled at that one. She tried to lock me out of a folder I created. Classic. But one message stood out. It was from a name I didn't recognize at first, Loretta M. Chandler. It took me a moment to connect the dots. Chandler, as in Chandler's wife. She had sent a single sentence. I think it's time we talked. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I opened the attachment she sent, a screenshot of her husband's messages. Dozens of them. Some to Mallory. Some to someone else. Some disgusting. Graphic. Careless. But what caught my attention wasn't the messages themselves. It was the date on one of them. December 3rd. The same night Mallory told me she was stuck at the airport after a delayed client meeting. So it wasn't just me. He lied to her, too. That changed something. Not in a comforting way. I didn't suddenly feel less betrayed, but in a cold, strategic way. It meant Chandler wasn't Mallory's master plan. He was just one more ladder rung. And now they were both crumbling beneath her feet. I responded to Loretta. We agreed to meet at a diner halfway between our homes. Public, neutral, safe. She showed up in a gray sweater and sunglasses. No makeup, hair pulled back like she was mourning something that hadn't even died yet. When she slid into the booth across from me, we just stared at each other for a few long seconds. Two people from opposite ends of a battlefield, finding themselves in the same crater. You look how I feel, she said finally. I almost laughed. You look better. She placed her phone on the table, screen facing up. It was already unlocked, the message thread with Chandler open like an autopsy. I've known for a while, she said. But I didn't know it was your wife. I nodded slowly. And I didn't know it was your husband. She tilted her head. So now what? I didn't have an answer. I wasn't here to team up, or to create some twisted revenge pact. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. Validation? Catharsis? Or maybe just proof that I wasn't crazy. That the cracks I saw forming in my life weren't imagined. Loretta leaned forward. He's not going to leave the company, if that's what you're hoping. He's too embedded. They'll protect him. I'm not hoping, I said flatly. I'm documenting. She nodded like she understood. And her. I didn't reply, because I didn't know anymore. What do you do with someone who breaks your heart, and then looks you dead in the eyes, and pretends they didn't? We talked for 45 minutes. Mostly in hypotheticals. No plans. No schemes. Just quiet clarity between two strangers who now knew far too much about each other's private hells. When we parted, she said something I still haven't shaken. She'll spin this, Loretta said. She'll twist it into something palatable. They always do. You have truth on your side, but she'll have the story. And that terrified me more than any affair ever could. Because Mallory was a master of story. 3 weeks passed. That night, the party, the hotel room, the messages, it all felt like a fever dream I had while sleepwalking through someone else's life. But the fallout was real. Quiet, but real. Mallory didn't come home. Not even once. At first, there were texts. A few long ones, followed by voice notes. She cried in one. Or pretended to. Said she didn't recognize herself anymore. Blamed the pressure. The stress. The disconnect between us. Claimed she didn't know what she was looking for, but knew it wasn't Chandler. I never replied. Then the text stopped. A lawyer called me a few days later. She wanted to separate quietly. I agreed. We'd built nothing that couldn't be divided. The apartment was under my name. The car was leased in hers. The dog. Well, we never got one. Thank God for that. I signed the papers in silence. She didn't fight me. Maybe she knew she'd already lost. Or maybe she'd found a new ladder to climb. Loretta emailed once, just to say thank you. Not for the pain, she wrote, but for waking me up. She said she'd filed for divorce. I didn't ask for details. We weren't allies anymore, just survivors of the same shipwreck now swimming in different directions. And me? I changed everything. I deleted the shared accounts, canceled the streaming services we never watched together, cleared out the top shelf of the closet where she kept all her just-in-case outfits. I boxed up her books, the ones she never read but displayed like trophies, and left them with the doorman. She sent a courier to get them. But the real shift wasn't in the apartment. It was in me. For the first time in years, I stopped apologizing for existing. I stopped calling myself weak for caring or soft for staying faithful in a world that prizes detachment. I didn't have to perform anger anymore. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need Mallory to fall apart in order to feel whole again. I just needed distance. So I booked a trip. Somewhere small. Coastal. A town with no corporate offices, no silent elevators, no empty wine glasses on hotel nightstands. I brought books, not self-help, just stories. I walked on beaches without headphones. I started journaling. Not for Reddit. For myself. One morning, I woke up before sunrise and stood outside with a mug of bitter coffee. No plans. No noise. Just the sound of waves and the cold breeze against my face. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I didn't think about her. Not even once. I didn't wonder where she was, or who she was texting, or whether she missed me. I didn't feel hollow. I didn't feel hurt. I felt light. Because the truth is, I didn't need closure from her. I only needed permission from myself to let go. And somewhere between that hotel room and this morning, I gave it. So no, this story doesn't end with me exposing her to the world, or Chandler getting fired, or a dramatic confrontation in a boardroom. It ends with a quiet man, holding a warm mug, breathing in salt air, not looking back. That's it. That's the ending. I walked away. And this time, she was the one who watched me go.